a social issue, it should be a health
And it should be
issue.
changed.
I mean,
Casey and I can't change it.
No, correct.
That's from June, council meeting December 21.
there you go.
Right. But we could open it up to something else.
Correct.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Aaron, would you do a roll call?
Maring is excused. Dashlet,
Here.
Boer,
Here,
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Swedberg.
Yes.
Hold on, Scott.
Is trying to get in?
He's trying to get in. Scott, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep. Are you present? Okay. Pavic,
Here.
Schmidt.
Here.
Okay, this meeting is in compliance with the open meeting law. I would like an approval of the agenda as submitted or changes.
So move, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Approval of the meeting minutes to the December 20th meeting. Could I get a motion for that? So moved.
So move.
I'll second.
All right. I have a motion by Swedberg and a second by Pavic.
Yep. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next item is consideration of bills. Does anyone have any questions about the bills that were submitted?
Amber, is all of the moving adjustments, those are for the people from the block
Street.
by,
The city
okay,
BG
yes,
project,
thank you.
correct. Yeah, when we did the original calculations, there was a 2018 chart,
Mhm.
and then another one had come out in 21, right after we started the project. We were still using the 18.
Okay.
So during the desk monitoring, it was identified as a deficiency, so we had to go back and repay them the
Okay.
due dates. Any other questions on the bills? If not, could I get a motion to approve the payment of these bills?
So moved.
Tony
Second.
wants it.
I'll take second.
Okay. Motion by Dashlet, second by Swedberg.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or do you want to do a roll call on this one?
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Meverden,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Maring. Not here. Sorry. Lautenbach,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Pavic,
Yes.
Swedberg.
Yes.
Okay, then we move on to conference attendance. Matt, do you want to talk about your conference?
Sure. Rural Water is WRWA, Wisconsin Rural Waters Association, is a conference that I've been going to for 8-9 years now. That conference is a 3-day conference in La Crosse. Very good conference. Water and wastewater credited classes at this conference for both of them. So that's coming up here, and I would leave the 4th, go down La Crosse, and be back on Friday the 7th.
Dad, have you seen the agenda for that conference yet?
I have not. I do not have the agenda out for the conference yet. I should probably have it by, hoping, the beginning of February here.
I'm particularly interested in PFAS and nitrates.
It will be on probably about 76 items on the conference. I think I talked in the Public Works to this when I came back from Rural Water last year. I probably spent every conference, Rural Water conference, talking about lead and where the lead water laterals were and lead main, and it's every year slowly fizzling out the lead, and every year PFAS is becoming a bigger and bigger topic. It's kind of taken over the lead rule in the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Okay, the other conference is going to be Randy. Do you want to talk about yours at all, that you're going to be attending?
Sure. It's the annual Winter Chief Place Foundation conference they do every year down at the Dells. It's a 3-day course. They've been going there since I got hired. They offer two of them. This is the better one. This is the one I go to versus the other one. They talk about hiring process, retention strategies. Dave Funkhauser is given a class on transformational leadership. They're going to cover Wisconsin Act 75, which has to do with duty to intervene and off-duty considerations. They're going to have a case study review of the Waukesha Christmas Parade incident, which I'm sure everyone kind of remembers back a back. Every year they do a presentation on some big event. You actually learn quite a bit. In Wisconsin, Attorney General will give his general updates for the state of Wisconsin. They'll have a seminar on the new high risk vehicle contact change that recently came through the state. We'll have a federal person come in giving a class on federal civil rights classes, and then of course the whole afternoon, the last day is all the legal updates for the state, everything from OWIs to how to handle take people in custody and the whole 9 yards. So it's a really good seminar. The one this summer I don't really go to because it's just more of a show for the vendors. This is the one you learn all the stuff about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address?
One moment.
Yep.
Could we get a motion to approve the conference
Oh, the
attendance
conferences?
if the committee so moves?
Oh.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion
Okay,
by
all in-
Lautenbach.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Aye.
Conference,
Lautenbach and Burr.
One moment.
okay.
All right, so I have a motion by Lautenbach and a motion by Boer to approve the conference attendance for Matt Murphy for WRWA and Randy Remaker for the WPLF.
Yeah,
Good?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
okay. Okay, we'll do that again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Okay, then we'll move on to public comment. Anyone from the audience want to say anything? Anyone from the audience? One more chance. Anybody from the audience want to address the council? If not, we're going to move on to old business then. The public safety facility, next step, so.
Yes, so this has been on the agenda, just kind of to keep everybody up to date of where the committee that was put together has been. As you can see in new business, we're going to talk about it right after this. So next steps, I think, are really leading into the new business. So if everybody's okay, unless anybody has any questions, we'll just move down to new business.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Have we looked at other lots in the city to put this on, like the one next to Siler or across from utility that Jim Rubis owns, like maybe, because that has the infrastructure all in, roads, curbs, sewer, whatever. Have we looked at maybe other locations where all that would be done, or we could just tap in?
Well, I guess I'm gonna take you, first of all, to the lot we've looked at. Okay, the simple answer is, no, we have not
We haven't.
looked at other lots, okay? The upfront question is, the infrastructure that we need out where our current lot is proposed, we have infrastructure, there is water and sanitary sewer there.
But no curb or street?
There is no curb or street.
Correct.
Okay, so the underground work has been completed. The sanitary sewer, the water is in good shape. The sanitary sewer should be looked at being updated before we would resurface, put curb and gutter in and put the street in,
Which
okay?
is a big expense on this project, where if we could find a lot that had the road in and all that, it'd be a lot less money.
Yeah, yes, it would be, but no, we have not looked at any other lots.
Are we going to look at other lots?
If that's something the council so desires, yes, we will, or we could go look at different lots.
I guess my question is, what is it, $1 million to make Sunset a decent road with curb and gutter and revising the sewer?
Amber, do you remember what it was? I don't think it was quite $1 million, but it was, I mean, there's,
I think to tear it all out, curb and gutter, subsurface, everything was actually closer to almost
2 million, yeah,
So 2 million.
yeah.
So did we ever talk to like Jim Rubis and say, hey, you have this lot here, would you consider selling it, or Siler Tire, the one next to that?
The lot right to the east of Siler Tire, I do not think would be big enough.
Okay, if that one's not big, what about,
But by Siler Tire, you're talking the back off of Rubis there?
no, I'm talking the one off of the main Jefferson.
Flora?
The one that's been for sale since forever, maybe that's the
Used to be Jake's, or it's Jake's.
Yeah.
Wait, are you?
Where the trees just fell down? Or,
No, the one
just-
over here on 54. You
Well,
know what I'm talking
because you,
Just
well, you
east
said
of
Siler and then
Siler's.
you said Siler again, so
Siler
I.
Tire, yeah.
Right, no, but that one was the one east of Siler Tire, you said it might be size prohibitive.
yes,
Now,
correct.
the Rubis one is which one?
Rubis is right across from utility, right on the corner from the label. The label's never gonna expand.
Okay.
Jim was holding on to it all these years for the label to expand. Well, the label's not gonna expand. We don't know that. Maybe talk to him. It's a good location. I know we're set on this industrial park, but to spend 2 million on it just to get the road ready.
To piggyback off of Kevin's though, that 2 million isn't part of the 3.7 million.
It is not.
No, that's
So-
besides.
I kinda have a problem tonight, you wanna do a resolution on a picture. I don't know what we're spending 3.7 million bucks on.
Fire department, a building.
Yeah. Well, are we still putting $80,000 worth of locks on the doors? I'd like to know that. That's my point. I'd like to see what I get that it's trying to raise the tax levy, but what if we have to go 4.5 million? What if we didn't charge enough? Or what if we could go 2.5? I don't know that because I don't have any numbers to look at.
Yeah, I
Well,
did my own verification.
like what numbers are you looking for, Steve? Because until I go out to bid, I can't give you any numbers to look at. I mean, I can give you general concept of what you have, $3.7 million, but I can't, I mean, if we want to decide if we're putting brown brick on or red brick on, or if we're putting wood doors on or metal doors, until that goes out to bid, we still have to bid this project out. And until we bid this project out, I can't physically give you a hard number and say it's gonna be 3.1 million or it's gonna be 4.1
I
million.
get that. But
So
But we
to,
must kind of know, for a while we wanted all glass doors, then we didn't want glass doors. We must kind of know what we're putting into this building to bid it, correct? Or am I ahead of,
did it?
I saw all the renderings and the pictures, and I
Yep.
kind of see it's like if I'm gonna buy $1 million house, I'm gonna walk in the house and see what's there. But here,
I don't have a
see it.
$3.7 million fire station for you to walk into to look at yet.
I know, but I want to know what's going to be in it when I walk in there. Does that make sense? And I know you can't give me exact things, but like I said, is there going to be glass doors in the front? Is there going to be, what are we bidding?
There is not. The glass doors now in the
And
front
I know
have
that,
been
but
taken
that-
out of it.
that was the one that came to
And it
mind.
went with a 2-part door.
Yep.
That is not a solid full glass door any longer.
Okay. Tom would like to make some comments.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just taken a step back to some of Kevin's questions on that. And I think initially, Kevin, the reason for that was we knew that, the cost of this project was gonna be high.
Right.
And we just thought that at the time, the city property was available, so we wouldn't have to invest additional monies into purchasing another piece of property. That's why we looked at city-owned property.
I get that, but now I'm sticking $2 million to get a road ready, so where am I getting the 2 million from? So really, this project is costing me $5 million, because I still have to get the road ready, but we can't do it the way it is. So if we can find a lot that has a road in, like.
Matt, should I be asking that question a different way? I'm not trying to be
Maybe
difficult.
south.
Do you know what I'm trying to
And
say?
I think, honestly, I think that would be a really.
And I get that, and that's why I'm saying, like, maybe I'm ahead
Just gonna kind of
of
dovetail
myself
out
as
of
well.
some
I'm sorry.
conversations that had happened in the past where, the road work for that Sunset project had been into the capital plan, that,
Yeah,
5-year plan.
80,000 was the seal coating we had in the capital plan, right? Or did we plan on doing that road?
So what Tom is saying is correct, okay? So our original intent when we went to this a year ago, okay, $5.7 million, the road work is gonna say cost just under $2 million, okay? We would move our infrastructure work around to move Sunset up the list to have that work done, okay? So instead of borrowing, let's say, last year, $7.7 million and doing all of the road at the same time, we were just going to say, not this year do Division Street, and that work would be moved out to Sunset. Same thing now, instead of doing our 2024 road and utility work, that project would be moved out to Sunset. So we wouldn't be looking for more money, we just wouldn't be staying on our normal capital outlay, we'd be moving our capital outlay out to Sunset.
Okay. Do we want to look at other lots, or maybe not? It's a nice lot that's sitting there, is my thing. It's not a swamp.
I just think it's, the way they were going at it was the purpose of not having to spend the money on a lot.
Right.
That's the city owned the property already and it's sitting there.
We do have other city property though, don't we? Like, we have a park that we don't even put the benches facing the park because we don't like it. Maybe that's the spot, and I'm not saying it is, but don't we have other spots like that?
Oh, which park is that?
The-
Newman Park?
Newman Park?
Is that big enough?
I don't know, I'm just saying.
Right.
Well, and I had said
And we
that,
might not be able to get to it in spring.
yeah. I had
Seriously.
mentioned that earlier, and
You're building in
it's
a
true, it's in a
wetlands.
flood zone, so
Well, right.
how much extra are you
Oh,
gonna
and
have
how
to
much
pay?
extra are you gonna pay in insurance?
You'll have to do
Yeah,
infrastructure all the way around that block and,
Right.
you know, more
Yeah.
roads than one road.
I'm just
Yes.
saying, does the city have
Right.
more properties? We have
You
that.
know, but other than that, and I mean, that's about the biggest lots in the area that, you know, at the time, and it just,
Why
The
is this
only
coming
other
up?
property would be Upper Peterson's
now?
Park, you have plenty of room up there.
harded,
Upper Peterson's Park, you could put the fire station up there if you had to, that's plenty big. It's just a dumb, empty parking lot anyways. Look at what we own. I was just asking if we don't
Yeah.
wanna change lots, and we drive past this lot every day.
There's potentially an upside to doing infrastructure up there, though. I mean, re-exploring how the industrial park is laid out, understanding the wetlands, the usage and whatnot, it might be inviting in different ways. There might be residual benefits. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed, but it just seems such a late hour now, be like, hey, you know, like, we have this deadline in order to get it on referendum, and we've known this coming up for months. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't act appropriately regardless, you know, because if it takes another 6 months and it's right, it's fine. But, like, why now, you know?
Because we never had a chance to talk about this building. The committee decided everything, and then we asked questions like, for instance, I asked about the bays, $50,000, because I didn't believe that. And I called the contractor because I want to find stuff out on my own. It was only $50,000 savings. Putting a second floor on instead of adding an addition. So they gave us the right thing, so Scott was telling me, but I like to find out my own stuff because too many people tell me things, and if you don't find out on your own. So that's why I thought of this lot. Well, maybe ask Jim Rubis. Don't have to put all this infrastructure. There's $2 million that we're spending right now. It's not like we have people knocking on the door to build buildings in that industrial park. We don't.
Not yet.
no, I agree.
I just want to though, so we went out at $5.7 million a year ago, and spring will be a year ago.
Right.
It failed. The fire chief came to the city council and at that time said, okay, the problem didn't go away because the referendum failed. What are the next steps? This body had asked to form a committee to go out and plan the next steps. And this body voted on that, and under Mayor Wayne Schmidt at the time, he formed a committee and brought you back this plan. Okay? So that's how we got to the point to where we are to date, is by that committee of some people on the fire department, some just city residents, to sit down and go through what are the pros, what are the cons, where can we chisel some money away, what can we do different, how can we get to this? And I think the three of the biggest asks that I think I heard coming out of the referendum a year ago was, number one is, we don't want 40 years. 40 years is just a long time. We're not happy with 40 years. Probably even bigger ask was, why the police department out there? I don't think that's a proper place for the police department to be. We don't want the police department to be way out on Sunset. There's still a lot of people that, you know, if we move the police department out there, are they gonna have a full-time secretary? What are their office hours gonna be? A lot of, we don't like that, okay? And number three is, we don't like the $5.7 million. What can we do about the $5.7 million? We feel like 5.7 is too high, all right? So this committee, those are the three things that they really dissected into what can we do to possibly make a phased approach, okay? So how can we build this that it could be added on to? How can we save money? How can we shorten up the term? And how do we get to where we are today? Well, just to bring everybody back in the history book is, you know, I don't think the fire chief took it upon himself to just say, I'm gonna go design this by myself and bring this in front of everybody today. Through Scott, Meverden was the council representative that was asked to sit on this board. I think he's been very transparent to this committee along every phase, and you know, every time we had a meeting, either at finance and personnel or at the city council, he has brought it to this to this body and said, you know, this is where we're at, we're meeting again on this day. You know, Jim Thielen from Bayland has been, you know, here, this is where, you know, continued, and that's how we got the plan that we have today. But to go back just a little bit to the question, Steve, you had asked the question of, you know, do we have $80,000 worth of door locks? And I think what you're meaning is like key fobs.
Key fobs.
I think, and I don't know exactly, but I think we cut a lot of that out of here. There are still some key fobs at door entrances. It's not every door, but
My point wasn't to bring that up. I want to see it.
you're using it as a.
Yeah, I want to know.
I'm not sure, besides showing you this, because this is what we have, what I can show you, Steve, unless you have a question that I can get you the answer to.
I don't know that I could form that question right now.
We will be, you know, pending on getting ready for a referendum, if that's what passes tonight, we will be reaching back out with Bayland. If everybody remembers kind of the 3D virtual, but that's not gonna tell you like this door has a door lock on it, or this door has, you know, glass. I mean, the door schedules we have, I think actually that's in here. It'll show you the door schedule. Like if you just go to page 2, A1.0, it shows you the doors now where they're not all glass. It shows you they're 2-panel glass and 3-panel would be solid where they were all glass.
Yeah, but it's, my point is, it's a picture. I have to decipher that. Is that, did they just throw that on there because that's what was on the computer, or is that what we're getting?
That's what you
You
would
know
be
what I'm
getting.
saying?
That's what you would be getting. That was I think a big ask from a lot of people. Do we need all solid glass, you know, garage doors? There's pros and cons, but at the end of the day, nobody's wrong. There's a little bit of price savings by not putting solid glass doors in.
I'm just worried that, like the last time, this is my personal feeling, is I asked a lot of questions, I didn't get a lot of answers, and then it was a referendum. And so I don't want to rush and make it a referendum again, and I still don't know what we're getting.
So I guess, can you elaborate more to what questions you have? I mean, so we can get you the answers?
Like you, without being able to see what's in there, I don't know what my question is. I don't know if I see $100,000 worth of tables, I might question, why do we need $100,000 worth of tables? But I don't know that we're getting that because I don't see it. Does that make sense? I want to know what we're buying.
Well, we're not buying anything. Okay? To make it clear, what we would be doing tonight is either voting to have go to referendum or saying, no, we're not going to referendum.
Is this in April?
We would have to make a decision tonight if we're going to referendum or if we're not going to referendum.
No one's gonna mistake this one for the Taj Mahal this time, right? I mean, it's, and I understand your considerations here, Steve. But like the idea was to pare it down and pare it down and pare it down and pare it down. You know, and at some point, you know, could you spend, you know, $20 less on this, or, you know, $50 more on that? And I get the considerations, but it seems as though, I mean, just based on what you're saying and based on what Scott had come back and said to us, they've been diligent to try to pare it down to a number, you know, that satisfies the needs that we have, maybe not ideally, but also meets the criteria of what the community was asking for. So, you know, I think it seems like an appropriate course of action that we've taken here, and yeah, the reservations I can understand, but it doesn't sound like we'll be able to get a specific answer unless you have a specific question. You know, I just.
Yeah, I guess to your point of it's not the Taj Mahal. The first time we did this, we were told that's what we needed. Now we're telling, no, this is what we needed. Is it?
Well, need wasn't need an aspiration.
I also remember, Steve, that, you know, we ended up, you know, after hearing some of the public comment and whatnot back on this, you know, we took, you know, big action on it by, you know, whether it's, and I know with Randy sitting to my right here was not maybe the thing that he wanted to see, but we took the police department out of it. You know, and that was, you know, through our door-to-door campaign that we went on, that was the biggest thing, you know, that we heard from people out and about. was that aspect of it. So, we did generate our product that we have right now with that taken out of it, and we made a bunch of changes to it with putting mezzanine up to, go down square footage. We took all of the anglings out of everything. Basically now you have a rectangular building with all similar roof lines, so we cut things on that means. And just to touch base on some of your things where you threw out the $80,000 lock system. And yes, that is something where, through conversations that we've had, we can get away with going back maybe to our punch keypads, which is far, far less expensive. But on the other hand, which again is going to be far less expensive, where we have to have some type of security system on that building. So we may look for, a video system that we put in, which is going to be far, far less than what those the fob door lock system is. Where, you can go out and buy security systems, video security systems, and be able to put them both inside and outside for a fraction of the cost of what those key fob doors would. So we've taken a lot of things into consideration. I know even some of the things you had talked about with tables. We do have tables, some of the stuff that we currently have that we can utilize in the new building. I know we had brought it up to our Fire Rescue Association. One of the things that we had talked about was looking at outfitting the kitchen. We would maybe put some of our fundraising efforts into buying the appliances and the dishwashers and the refrigerators, doing some of that. If there's monies available and the public, is supportive of our fundraising efforts, maybe this is something we can look at some of the bedroom areas. If we have, buy the beds, or, I'm not saying that, because our funds are limited as well. But these are things that we can look to try and offset too. Is it a huge chunk of money? No, maybe it's not. But there are things that we can do and things that we currently have, that are gonna help us with this as well.
Yeah, and I get that, and I'll go on record right now, Chief, to say that I believe I took your tour.
Yeah.
I know that we need something. I would never argue that
Right.
fact. I believe we also need something in the police station, which we lost now, so somewhere down the road we have to spend that money. But the point is, the things you just told me, I don't get that from this paper, that you might do this, or we could help with money here or there, and that's what I'm looking for. Apparently I can't get that because we're not there yet, so it's
But
just
on the
complicated.
on the other side of that too, Steve, with what we had put together for some of that, and being a contractor yourself, you can understand that they put these contingencies in there and the assorted, where there's, I believe it's a percentage number, Matt, and I don't know what that exact number is, I don't recall what that exact number is, but they build that right into the price of it. It's not saying you have to use it all, but they're putting some of that stuff in there. And I'm saying for like your bedroom sets. I know one of the things that we had talked about too was our turnout gear lockers. We're gonna have to have something in the facility to hang our turnout gear in for both the fire department and the EMS. And those are items that were all figured into. It's not a contingency, I don't recall what the term is for it, but, those are expendables that, they threw a dollar figure in there, to help provide those items that are necessities to this new project.
Well,
I hate to say, but, we're not hiding anything.
No, and I'm not
it's-
insinuating that you are, but I don't have, the fact that you're not hiding it doesn't give it to me.
John, did you have a comment?
I wanted to just take a different track here a little bit. First of all, I thought you did an excellent job of downsizing. I absolutely recognize the need. One of the things that came up last year when we were presenting this to the public was the application for grants. And if the referendum passes, does that preclude us from going out for additional grants? And what I'm thinking of is ARPA dollar grants, FEMA grants, Homeland Security grants, Department of Agriculture, state fire grants, that do fund equipment as well as structures. And one of the things I've not seen come back in any of the reports is that we have this plan, and we submitted this plan with a grant request. I didn't hear that anywhere along the line, and that would address some of the criticisms that we heard a year ago. So,
So one thing with the application for grants, from what we were told, is you have to be ready to do this
Right.
in order for them to even consider
you
you.
have to have a plan.
Yeah,
Yep.
a plan, and it
And the
has to be.
price.
Let's just stop for 1 second. You ask a great, fantastic question, okay? And I know where you're going with it, but let's get rid of, let's finish the public facilities and then move into the draft resolution, and I think I'll address that answer at that point for you.
Thank you.
Okay, that being said, we ready to move on to the draft resolution?
Does anybody else have questions about the next steps before we get into the resolution? Okay. Then, Madam Mayor, if we want to move to that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start by having our treasurer kind of break down all of the paperwork that everybody has in front of them. So everybody is on the same page, and let's discuss that. And then we'll get into some of the things that John is alluding to or coming to, because it is a great question. Amber, if you want to kind of walk everybody through this, please.
I took Matt's $3.7 million price tag and I went to Jeff Belangi, our financial guy, and had him give me debt schedules for both a 40-year amortization and a 30-year amortization. We went for the longer term because it keeps it more affordable. But we also heard last year that 40 years was too long, so we asked them for 30 years. The interest rates have risen since we did this last year. So with the $3.7 million bond at a 30-year amortization, we're looking at approximately 4.5%. And we don't know for sure what it'll be until you actually go out to the bond market and see what you can get, but that's what he's estimating we'll see. So our highest annual payment would be just shy of $230,000 for the annual debt payments. So apply that over across the total assessed valuation of the city, which is this big sheet that you all have in front of you. $230,000 for a 30-year amortization. We're looking at an increase to the mill rate of about 97 cents per thousand. Now, if you remember from last year, that's almost the exact same amount.
That's basing on $100,000 home?
97 cents per thousand of valuation. So if you look over to the right, I've got a whole bunch of assessed valuations entered, starting at 50,000 all the way up to 450,000. That green line right underneath the blue numbers will show you what the annual impact to your taxes would be. So if your home is worth $150,000, your tax bill would go up $145.79.
So you're saying that we are essentially, we'll be getting a $3.7 million building for the same price per household that we would have gotten a $5.7 million building with everything last year?
Yep.
And shave 10 years off of it.
Right.
Because last year we talked about 40 years, now we're talking about 30 years.
And we always
savings would be the 10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
So your $100,000 home would be $97.19. A $200,000 home would be $194.39.
All our $100,000 homes are now $200 because the assessments went up, so we should really be honest and say it's based on a $200,000 home, because everybody's assessment pretty much doubled.
Well, I mean, you can look, like Amber had stated in the blue here, it starts at
Right.
50,000, it goes up to a $450,000 home.
But we're highlighting 100 and really nobody has a $100,000 house realistically.
That's just the number we used last year, is a $100,000 house, and yes, I do agree with you, Kevin, $125,000, $150,000 homes are correct.
I have a comment, I don't know if it's appropriate for you, but I'm gonna say it anyway. The tax mill rate went down, and the commercial businesses went down because they didn't get reevaluated.
They were reevaluated.
They were,
But so the sales on a commercial property weren't selling as high or over above assessed valuation as the residential properties were. So the commercial property values didn't change as dramatically as the residential, which is why their assessed valuations didn't change.
I think that you answered my question without me answering it. I was gonna wonder if we needed to reevaluate the commercial properties, but apparently they have been done.
Yep.
No,
It was
because
every property
You know what I'm
statewide.
saying?
I know exactly what you're saying, and to what Kevin said earlier is the $100,000, what was $100,000 for, say, home in the city of Algoma was market-driven in the last year and a half. We're selling for $150,000, $175,000. You didn't see that market drive to the businesses. To the residential properties is where you saw that big shift.
I was just looking to bring mill rate down.
Now, why 3.7 million? Okay, our goal, one of our things that when we originally sat down with this committee, we wanted to try to be at $3 million. That was, can we get to $3 million? That was our real push, okay? I here again can't stand here or sit here to tell you today that we can get to $3 million. Could we have drawn this and put this in front of you today at $3 million and crossed our fingers and hoped in this unstable market, could we get to three? That we know there are some things that we can look at to try to shave some more money. I feel like it is not our best interest to say, I think we can do this at $3 million and we go out to referendum, it passes, and we go out to final bid this and it comes back at $3.4 million. A long conversation or conversations with Bayland last week and looking at, metal prices came down, but now they've stabilized. They didn't come down as much as they thought they were going to this point. There's some building materials, for some reason, insulation price continues to go up. So there's a lot of, we do know now that we did our soil analysis out on the property with Robert E. Lee. We do know now that we do not need the amount of aggregate underneath this whole building that we once thought we were going to need. The material out there, the ground out there is better than we thought it was. So that's one of the last asks that we brought to the council, to have Robert E. Lee go out and do that analysis and look at putting in the retention pond. We know that that's going to work. The retention pond doesn't have to be as big as we once thought it was going to have to be because of the perk tests of the soil in the lower land levels out there. But as we move forward, a lot of, I think, your answers, Steve, are, I wish I could give them to you. So what Bayland did is they sent this out to contractors they work with every day. And they said, put a number on this, all right? They gave them a number, so it's a pretty accurate number, this number that we have. But there's the unknowns to when we put this out to bid. Is where is our economy at? How busy is the plumber or the electrician? If they're in a market like they are in right now where they're really busy, can't find help, they're gonna be able to bid this a little bit higher than if they don't have work, or maybe they don't have a whole lot of work. Depending on when we put this out to bid, they'll bid that price a little lower. Picture this like a utility project. Our Division Street, that's going to be going out to bid the end of into February, beginning of February here. I like to bid those jobs because a lot of the contractors are hungry and looking for work. They don't have a lot of, spring construction work lined up yet. They have a lot of it that they're bidding and working on, but as they start to gather these $500,000, $2 million, $5 million jobs, they continue to bid work. They just continue to raise their prices to make it more profitable for them. And hey, we need to pay more overtime. We need to, so until we physically go out and hard bid this and say, okay, we're gonna move this forward, we just don't know, unfortunately, to say exactly what this number is going to be.
Is there an opportunity after you bid it to change it? Where, for us to look at it and say, we really hate this. I'm not saying we will, you guys know what you need, but that's my point. Is there an opportunity to change?
33%, the state allows you to enter into a contract with a contractor and move that number 33% without rebidding it. So if we all of a sudden get this done and we're like, we just really don't want that, a lot of times, Steve, you can sit down with the contractor. In fact, we did it. We bid the RDA block. And after the bids came back, the concrete sidewalk price was just like, this is ridiculous. We sat down with the contractor. We said, with our engineer and the contractor, and said, we're gonna pull all of the sidewalk off of this block. Okay, so our engineer went back to the contractor and said they want to strike X amount of the sidewalk, which was, Amber, probably better than half of the concrete work.
I wanna see, yeah.
It was more than the 33%. So the contractor said, well, I bid that to do this much work, so I think he charged us $5,500 more in mobilization, which we agreed on, to strike $175,000, and don't quote me on that, but thereabouts $175,000 worth of work. And a lot of times you can just sit down with the contractor and say, this bid came back at $4 million. We do not want to exceed X. What can we do? Is there something that we can do? And we'd sit down and, like I think the fire chief said, is maybe we can get rid of, we're going to put a TV up that we're going to fundraise for the beds, or we're going to, maybe our association can try to raise some of that money. Maybe, somebody has 2 beds that they're going to donate to the fire department or something like that, Now, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, but all of that stuff, that's something that at that time, I think, we sit down with the fire chief and say, Chief, we're at 4, we don't want to go over 3.7, what can we do? Now John's question, and you don't have to ask it again, but I will give you an answer, okay? One of the simple answer to your question is, if we go out to referendum, the referendum passes, are we locked in? Okay, can we no longer, the referendum passed and we just got $1 million grant. We can receive that $1 million grant and we can lower this right down to 0 and not move the mill rate or move the tax levy $1. If, let's just say it goes out to referendum, the referendum passes, and 2 days after the referendum, somebody comes forward, or the state of Wisconsin says, we found you $3.7 million in funding that we're gonna fund this project, we can make this go away a lot faster than we put it in place. This council would make a motion to say, we're no longer gonna do this, and we would no longer raise our limit by this $3.7 million. So we are not hand-tied to, if this would pass, now we have to say no to all funding. We can continue to look. Myself and the mayor, last week, we're over in Luxembourg at the Village Hall in Luxembourg. We met with Andre Jacques over there. Listen to their fire department's needs over in the Village of Luxembourg. Pushing to put together a letter to get something out to all of our state representatives, not just him. Amber went over, I think about 3 weeks ago, over to UWGB, met with Governor Evers and some of his staff, where they had a listening session on some budget issues. And Amber, was it probably 75–80% of everybody there were from municipalities that were looking for fire department, a lot of the same needs that we're looking for.
Revenue sharing is one of the big things, but yes.
Yes, so we are not hand-tied to receiving funding if this referendum passes. We can continue right to the day of receiving this money, and even in after somebody comes forward and says, I want to donate $1 million and we want to put our name on the fire station, this body at that time could listen to that and say, I think this is something we should look at, or I think this is a good idea. We can lower this 30 years. We're not locked into putting this out for 30 years.
Thank you, that's helpful.
All right.
But we are under time constraint to get this referendum on the ballot.
We have to, by Aaron, it's next week, Wednesday, I do believe.
Yeah, I think it's the 25th and the 26th.
Yeah.
You have to formally let me know by, I believe, the 25th, and then I have to formally let the county know by the 26th.
Yeah.
that it would be on the spring
Ballot.
ballot.
Do you have to have the wording by then too?
Yep, so that's actually in the resolution.
Resolution.
The resolution has to be, and I guess if you wanna, if you flip to your resolution, this is the exact same resolution from when we did it last year. It has all the correct wording in it. Amber updated it this morning with the correct dollar amounts, so we resent that out. The only thing in this resolution that, we point out and ask to be struck if you so to choose to move forward with this is where it has the 2 words of police departments.
It is so exact from last year's resolution that the police department is still in it, and I apologize and thank the fire chief, caught that shortly before the meeting.
You just need a motion here?
Yes, so what we would be asking for is to adopt that resolution,
Yep.
per the wishes of the council. And this would, all this would do is put it on the ballot to go to referendum, is to ask the voters to vote.
I'll make that unless we need to discuss it.
Second.
Wait a minute. I just wanna make sure I get this right, because this has to be submitted along with the minutes to make sure we did everything right. Okay, so Kevin made the motion and Casey seconded it, and it's just to recommend to council to approve this resolution. Does that work for everybody?
Would it have to be minus the police department then?
Yep.
Yes,
Thank you,
we would
Mitch.
ask that that would be in the motion, that we would just strike that.
Yeah, strike
Okay, got it.
And then we would want to do a roll call.
We should.
Yes.
Pavic,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Swedberg,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Dashlet,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Meverden.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So now this will get recommended to council. That meeting is next.
Okay. We ready to move on to the marine dredging issue?
You wanna start, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
So, this was kind of a last second thing here. We do have some monies in capital outlay that we kind of keep in there because obviously we can't predict dredging. Mother Nature gets to predict when we dredge or when we don't dredge, in our marina to allow our marina to open. This is something that, watching the weather trend the last 3 years, we've been in a very positive position down in the marina with the water levels being as high as they were. If anybody pays any attention to the marina and looks where the water lines are, like on the steel walls, the steel sheeting to where they are today, I think we're down probably about 2.5 feet, Casey, maybe even closer to 3 feet, depending on which way the wind blows. With all of that water that we had in high lake levels was very fortunate, but it also, with these big amounts of rains that we had, caused a bigger amount of silt to come in and wash into our marina. With that being said, we have some preliminary numbers. Casey Monday had the guys out actually physically in the marina, polling and checking some heights, and we believe that, or I shouldn't say we believe, we know that we're gonna have to dredge inside of our marina. So we have the ball rolling. We have $300,000 earmarked. We've been working, talking with a contractor, getting some preliminary numbers, but we do have to go out to bid as well for this. Because of it, yeah, it's maintenance, it's emergency. So we started, Casey's been working about 2 weeks now. Me and him were on the phone with the DNR this afternoon. Their normal permit for dredging is a 90-day permit. We do qualify under the Emergency Act, where more or less it's still a 90-day permit, but they give us the right to start the work because of their window where you can no longer dredge in the marina. So we're asking for permission to go out to bid, to look at dredging in a time frame that would probably be late February, that work would start. If anybody has any questions, I would entertain those at this time.
When you said the recent rains you're saying, is that like do we have an idea what it was in this? I mean, this doesn't really matter. Ultimately, it's a curiosity.
Yep.
I mean, because it's generally, our problem comes from inland, right? Like not a push from.
Correct.
Okay, so it's, I mean, runoff considerations.
Yeah.
If trees lined the entirety of the path, we potentially wouldn't have that problem. But you're speaking, like this is emergency because we've recently added considerably to it.
Correct. So our drop actually happened, and like the DNR and NOAA is projected, is we're gonna see these, we used to see these kind of long rolling hills where, you get up to highs and then you slowly go down to lows, where you're gonna see these more peaks and valleys now. When I say the rains, I'm talking the rains of 2019, 2020, where we were getting, 4 and 5 inches of rain in a matter of an hour, causes soil erosion, which just puts more into the Anape River, which ends up putting more into the Algoma Harbor at the end of the day.
So conceivably the fact that the water went up, it probably saved us a few years. This probably would have been needed.
Correct, but it also, with all of that water coming up, it also brought more silt in probably because of the style of rains that we were having.
Right, okay, yeah, those torrents.
Yeah, correct.
Casey mentioned this morning too that no snow to melt off to bring the water up,
No ice, so we have
Yeah.
evaporation every day.
We're probably down a full 8 inches from where we were in August, September, when we started trying to take the docks out here.
When was the last time we dredged?
2012.
12.
Does anybody have any more questions? If not, could I get a motion to go forward with the dredging?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Sorry, did John have a question?
I'll ask separately.
Okay, so the motion was to move forward with the dredging, and that was made by Lautenbach and seconded by Mr. Dashlet.
Okay, would you do a roll call on that?
Dashlet,
Yes.
Pavic,
Yes.
Boer,
Yes.
Lautenbach,
Yes.
Swedberg,
Yes.
Meverden,
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Okay, that motion.
Did you have something else to add on that, John?
No, but my question was simply going to be for hazardous material disposal would be considered part of the project, is that correct?
It will be, yes.
Okay, then we'll move on to the Parks and Rec Perry Park Playground.
So, down at Perry Field, I know you guys have been down there recently, but that big playground structure that's down there, it's gonna have to basically come out. I believe it's beyond repair. The metal parts are shifting and cracking. That was put in, back in the early 2000s. My brother actually remembered helping put that in when he worked for the parks. So we're looking at options of what to do to replace it. And we had money earmarked in the capital fund for playground and resurfacing of the tennis courts, as well as a new lawnmower, which would put us at $110,000 that we had earmarked for the parks in the capital budget. We talked about it in our Park and Recs committee meeting of, I don't know if you guys all have a sheet that has the options, or just price options that I reach out to them, they give me, this is what you get for this dollar amount, this is what you get for this dollar amount, and so forth. And we kind of looked at it on the Park and Rec end, and for what we could get, we were basically talking, we decided that we would push back the lawnmower because we don't really need it. We just ordered a lawnmower, it should be in, I think any day now. We basically take all that we had earmarked in the capital, combine it into one, and get something a lot nicer for playground equipment there, because that's essentially located park in town, and any time of day there's always people in there. So what we were asking as the Park and Rec committee was to request upping our capital funds from $110,000 to up to $175,000, just by looking at what we can get. Now, it doesn't mean we'd actually spend $175,000, but we were talking how some of this stuff in here would be nice, and there's some other stuff that we looked at that'd be very nice to have, and something that none of our other parks have. This way we'd be able to do it all at once. This would be them, these prices that they have on here are them installing it. We'd remove the equipment that's there now. But basically the way it looks is a lot of that stuff, it may not even be usable this summer. We got slides that are cracked, and for us to stick the money back into the one that's there to fix it would kind of be just like throwing in the garbage, in my opinion. So we were looking, and before we decided what we wanted, we had to kind of figure out what we were allowed to spend. So when we looked at it for $110,000, we weren't going to be able to get much. So we were hoping to ask for additional funding to replace that playground structure.
And another thing on the playgrounds is they have specials, like spring specials,
Yes, so
where
they
you
have-
might get a $200,000 playground for $165,
Yep.
depending when this is bought.
So on the 24th of January, there's a representative from Burke, from Lee Recreation, who was the dealer for Burke in this area. She's coming here to look at our current park and our size that we could go with there. And she was actually last week she was at they have a conference for Burke every year where they roll out their new stuff, and that's when they set their sales. So there's always a sale that they have for like a year, and that sale doesn't mean that it's something that's getting discontinued. What they consider a sale is they look at what they sold and what a lot of people had. They put that all together to make a more financially friendly option, instead of, well, we don't need this piece and this piece. They put that together as a set, basically, so a little less confusion and a little simpler to choose what you would like.
How did you come to the 175?
Just by
Yes,
looking
sure.
at these, we kind of
Can we pass that around? It kind of shows all.
Well, I have it. I want, because I saw the 190 top end, so I'm thinking like value versus want. I mean, it could be an amalgam of these things, correct?
We
It's not
looked at
like,
it, and that one had the 3-story, and we felt it was the most bang for the buck because it was 3 stories in one spot with a slide and had a bunch of slides, and the committee just felt that was the most.
okay, so you were looking at that specific,
Yeah.
that one's, okay. I didn't know if it was just like, that we might be able to pick some of this and some of this, but
No,
like that's
there's
the,
one in there for 175.
right,
and-
yep, I got
and
you.
it could be a combination of that. It's just that it had a lot of neat things that I think that park's used like 90% of the time in the city versus the other parks.
It is. I know with working with the kids before Case really came on this summer, I mean, they had kids there every day for our summer park program, and they did a fantastic job of putting things on, but that was the number one comment was, I can't let these kids go down these slides anymore. I can't let them climb on this because there's rust, the slide's cracked. It's, you know, I would be very hesitant to let my nieces and nephews go to that park this summer because of the stuff that's sticking out. I mean, it's not good.
Because we kind of talked about too as well, we could put $110,000 at it this year and try to put more in the budget for next year. But this year, that fence along Steel Street, we're gonna have to do some of that. And that fence, which we'll probably wouldn't work ourselves on that, but in order to get that equipment out of there and new stuff in, we're gonna have to take that fence apart. And instead of taking it apart twice, we could just take it apart once and be done with it. And then we'd take the mulch that's there, and we'd rake as much of it as we could, and we'd put that as a base, and then we'd add fresh new stuff on top.
We just looked at it, let's do it right the first time instead of being cheap and then later on, why didn't you add this? Well, there's another 25,000.
Yeah, no, I don't actually have a problem with the number. It's just, it's value versus cost. It's a
Yeah.
curiosity. Like, I mean, I think that parks are, you know, as essential, not as essential necessarily as saving lives, but I think as far as a thriving community goes, as far as attracting people with children obviously want a place for them to go. And, yeah,
We
so
didn't want to give you a stroke and say, hey, we need $200,000. We'd be like, oh, we ain't spending that much. So we kind of went to that 175.
And that's better.
And we're going to spend 3.7 on something else, you know?
Well, I want to thank you for considering my vascular health.
Our goal is not to try to spend $175,000. Like Casey had said and Kevin had mentioned is, you know, through this sale that's coming up and different things is, let's try to put something together, and if it comes back at 120, and it covers everything we're looking for, that's fantastic. But let's not put something together for 120 and then come to the board and we spent a whole bunch of time and the city council's like, let's try to spend 90,000. Well, let's go this route and, you know, see, I guess what, because I'll be honest, when we sit down and first started looking at these prices, when I started in the municipal side, when you told me what some of the swing set stuff costs, is like, what? I mean, it's unbelievable. And this is touching the very, very, very low end. You can go with a matted floor that's a squishy, safe floor. You can add $300,000-$400,000 to that price just for the flooring is
Like
outdoor.
Even installation, I did a playground like this. These guys do it for a living, they roll in, they do it. If you've never done one before, you're following directions, you're running around, and they come in, they roll in, this is like every day for them. Might as well just have them do the work, because it's more efficient.
On our selections, do we
Comes
have
back
any,
to warranty
Yeah.
if somebody else.
Right.
on our selections, do we have any input from our liability insurance carrier? Because one of the biggest things with playground equipment is liability of, first of all, the equipment itself, secondly, the installation, and then the maintenance. So,
No, we have not asked our liability insurance if, you know, what we currently have. Obviously, they know what we currently have. Updating and or upgrading to what we're looking at going to. We have not actually sat down with them or talked to them about that. That is something I think we should. I know years ago merry-go-rounds were a big thing with liability insurance. It's like if you were a municipality with a merry-go-round,
different designs, different materials, as they wear over time, can become dangerous. So the question is, you know, do they have a good housekeeping seal now on these types of pieces that we're putting in for public use?
Just a comment as well for both of you. There's one of these has a tube slide on it, and they don't have good reviews, so just something for you guys to check on. Little kids are afraid to use them, things like that.
I'm just laughing at Kevin from the last meeting. He's like, this slide is amazing.
You're a very good dad, I guess, whatever slides you took your son. 3 stories, no guardrails.
Yeah, that's how they used to be.
And I'm laughing because Steve's like, no, they have bad reviews. Like,
To your point, we'll look into the liability insurance thing. However, like, this is all Lee Recreation does, is this, and I'm pretty sure they're the ones that are doing Brimmer Park? No, not Brimmer, in Kiwanee. What's your
Brimmer Park.
Brimmer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Park.
they're the ones who are doing the one in Kiwanee, so.
I know the Parks and Rec tasked Casey and sent him in a couple different directions. And Casey, I think you came back and said like, this is our sales rep in this area. There's not, you know, this isn't like, let's go to Volvo and Brooks Tractor and there's not 8 options out there. This is kind of.
The Burke playground system is probably the most common, probably nationwide. There are other ones out there, but they don't have the reputation that Burke has. Most of your schools and playgrounds around here are basically all Burke equipment.
And they just did the school.
Yeah.
They just did the.
So if we upgrade our equipment, can we expect a reduction in our payment for insurance? That's the other question.
Probably are gonna see an increase because the cost of the playground equipment is going to be.
Yeah, you're insuring more money.
We're insuring a higher
Yeah.
quality product. I do know, as a municipality, the liability isn't gonna be, I don't think, a huge issue because you're taking your own risk by using that equipment. You have a certain level of responsibility to make sure you're safe when you're using public equipment.
Have they seen our old equipment?
We don't have to show them that.
Sign a release
It
or what?
does make a difference. What's underneath the playground will make a difference, so if you don't have enough wood chips, the insurance company will make you add. If it's all metal with no plastic coatings, they're gonna make you do something about it. But if we are putting in a newer structure.
It's just that it's not free if someone decides they want to take issue with this.
They can try.
What kind of warranty is on this?
I'm not sure, we haven't really gotten that far into it.
Is that just the cost of the equipment, or is that the base as well? Because we probably have to do a new
This
base,
is-
right?
that would-
That's
they-
just the
Wood
equipment?
chips are cheap enough where I think we could take it out of regular operating expenses, or we have, general parks donations that we could use for that. I don't think wood chips are really all that.
Yeah, because they gotta be like 12 inches deep or something, don't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Which
we,
is why I
wood
was
chips.
saying we take
I would
what's
say like
there
on a
and break
yearly
a bunch of
basis,
off.
we add to all of our, maybe not every park, but, you know, maybe every 3 years, they get it, probably 3, 4, 5 yards. And wood chips break down and blow away and
So
float
I'm thinking
away.
if we buy a $190,000 swing, we're gonna make that base bigger than what we have now.
Oh,
right?
you're saying like bigger,
Yeah.
and yes,
You're
we might
gonna
have to do
expand,
that.
yeah.
It might have to be expanded by 20,
Whatever,
30
yeah.
feet or something, correct?
Okay.
One last question, so where's the $65,000 coming from? Because you're adding 65,000 to what you said you already have in capital outlay, so where is that money going to come from then?
I had talked to Amber at one point, and she said we'd still have, she does.
I'm pretty confident that we have enough money left from 22's projects. We came in under budget on the Third Street. And we didn't do quite as much, or the sidewalk work that we did last year didn't cost quite as much. So we've got enough extra from last year to cover that.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
You need a motion to,
Yes.
to increase or to.
To increase to 175K and then allow the Parks Committee to really start digging into this and building something for you guys to look at.
I'll make that motion.
Project not to exceed 175K.
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah, I'll make that motion as stated eloquently by Clerk Ashton.
Did somebody make a second, or am I looking?
I'll second that.
Okay. Do you want to do a roll call on this then?
No, it doesn't have to be a roll call.
You don't need it? You don't
No,
need
because we're not spending anything yet. I
Just
mean,
authorizing the
Okay.
parks to move
All,
forward.
all in favor, say aye then.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion is approved. Okay, the Knutson Hall flooring issue.
No.
You
You just spent enough money.
Well, we have the money for this.
If you guys have ever been
Sure.
to Boots Hall recently, the flooring's in pretty rough shape. I know Steve had mentioned, not this last meeting before, we'll go on the top. What I think we're gonna end up doing is ripping the carpet out and probably putting a 1/4 inch underlayment to level everything off. But this is basically just saying, what do we say, up to $12,000 to redo the floor at Knutson Hall. This money would not technically come out of the city budget. The Knutson Fund, which is is there a trust fund?
Yeah.
Is all money that we earn interest on. They have an account, we earn interest off of it, and it goes, and it can only be really used at that youth club and Knutson Hall facility. There's roughly $30,000 in there right now. Fortunately, not really a whole lot's been done up there. But after figuring out the square footage and everything, for around, I'm figuring around 10, but we're calculating in some unexpected expenses. Basically spending $12,000 out of that Knutson fund.
For the vinyl laminate, is that what you
It would
were
end up being the laminate, not the vinyl, because the laminate, from all the ones I've seen, has a better scratch resistant quality than the vinyl. Which is why we decided that way. They had actually kind of decided on the flooring, but it was basically came down to, I put them side by side, and I was comparing them, and the laminate had a better scratch resistant. Now the dent resistant was different, but the scratch resistant, which I feel would be our biggest issue up there, would be more with the laminate versus the vinyl floor.
Well, in the kitchen, are you still gonna
The
put?
kitchen would stay
Okay.
tile, or
Okay.
sorry, the kitchen would stay what it is. This is just like, so the walkway from basically off the Legion Park grounds, that walkway above the gym, the hallway between there and Knutson Hall, and then that common area there, the narrow hallway, and then the other big
That
common
big
area. So the bathrooms were just retiled not that long ago, so that would stay the same, the kitchen would stay the same. And the other hall room there would stay the same for now.
That's fine.
So you're going from carpeted to a laminate,
Yes.
then the sound levels will they still be acceptable for public meetings and stuff?
I would think so. It's gonna have, still have there's a pad underneath it, not carpet pad, but it'll have a pad, that's designed for sound and,
It's a really thin pad to get up and move.
Sound
it's like a
attenuation.
7 mm pad that I think it is 7 or 12, I don't remember which one it is, but goes underneath that, and it helps with sound and,
Not bounce as much.
yeah.
Any other questions?
Are you gonna be
Then would we like a
getting a
motion
contract
to-
for runners
No?
and that then
Yes.
after for, you know, winter time, you're gonna have snow and slush and.
That was part of it too, is with the lamp, you can at least clean it a lot better. Now, in order to
The
clean that
carpet,
carpet,
yeah.
it's buried in there so bad. We didn't want it with
Well,
latch.
yeah,
I move that we approve the Knutson Hall flooring project.
Second. And this is just informational
Yeah.
because this is the Knutson Fund that is part of the budget. It's more informational that we're letting you know because it's a pretty large, it's not the normal, you know, replacing a toilet or something like that. So that's the only reason it was on here, is just to
Okay.
inform everybody that, somebody doesn't rent Knutson Hall and they're like, when did we put all new flooring and where did that money come from?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So do you want the motion, or do you?
It's fine, there's a motion on the floor in a second, if you wanna.
Okay, we might as
We
well.
don't need a
take-
roll call vote.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion is approved. Okay, then the engineering services with Robert E. Lee.
Yes, I think everybody has a copy of our engineering services. This comes to, the city every year. This is, so, we went out for RFPs, for engineering firms in 2019 and started using Robert E. Lee. This is just something that they give us every year, that we are going to work with Robert E. Lee for our majority of our engineering of all projects throughout the city. So, I think everybody has it in front of them. There's no dollars amount because it's dictated by the jobs that we do. It's not an annual, we're not locked into paying them X amount of K per year. It's based on job duties.
Did their price per unit, whether it's hour or job, stay the same?
Their price list is on here, Steve.
Oh, I didn't see
Some of the things, the majority of them stayed the same. It's the last page, 2023 labor rates for
Oh, I
Robert E.
saw
Lee
that, but it
Associates.
doesn't tell me if it changed. Yeah.
Very little of them changed.
Okay.
There were a couple, engineering 3 and 4. I think they went up by like $8, per hour. Basically though, across the board, it stayed the same. And it's really complicated because, well, engineering 1, 2, and 3, well, if those didn't change, well, because we don't ever use them, like in a job, the engineering's 1 through 4, 1 through 5, we probably use about an equal amount of time of all of them per a job. Does that,
Who,
you know,
who determines which one is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Them?
really on the job?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter, they'll, whatever, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, I have a question then. So that engineering then is, so they would do they would do the Division Street then? They would be overseeing the Division Street problem?
That is correct. So every project that the city has, the city of Algoma has, Robert E. Lee would be our engineering firm unless they would come back to us and ask to reach out to a different firm.
Okay, then I have a question because on tomorrow night's agenda for Utility Commission, there's something on there about approving another engineering company for the services on Division Street. So is there 2 engineering companies? And if so, why is there, wouldn't there just be like one set of plans and one engineer overseeing the whole thing? Why would the utilities be different, I guess?
Okay, it's a good question, Mitch. When we went out to RFPs, we looked at 4 engineering firms, I think in 2019. Myself, the mayor at the time, Wayne Schmidt, Lee Dashlet for the city of Algoma, we sat down, and Pete Hawk and Nancy, and I believe one of their board chair at the time was Guy Hosh, sat down on the utility side. We actually sat right here and we put out an RFP for engineering firms to apply to. I think we received 4 of them back and we interviewed all 4 of them. Cedar Corp, who the city was currently working with, along with the utilities at the time. We interviewed Robert E. Lee, Ayers and Associates, and McMahon and Associates, I believe, were the four that we interviewed. At the time, we finished the interview process, and we had a discussion, and there were some things that were going on with Cedar Corp at the time of, in the best interest of the city, we're doing everything we feel like we're doing the best. And I asked some questions about, well, if you're doing the best, why did we receive a bill for this and receive a bill for that? And had a conversation and said, you know, at this time, maybe we stay the same. And we decided shortly after that meeting, like the next day, I think we have to break away and go to a different firm. At that time, we decided to go to Robert E. Lee and Associates, and the city was gonna work with Robert E. Lee. We brought that back to the Utility Commission. The Utility Commission at that time was not happy. They're, nope, we're gonna stay with Cedar Corp. They have all of our data. They have all of our information, okay? So that's the engineering side of it. So this project, the 2023 Division Street project, this last year, the 2022 6th Street Road and Utility project, we've had, this is now the third year that we've had two different engineering firms. This will be the third year that we'll be working with, the city working with Robert E. Lee, the utilities working with Cedar Corp, okay? Our engineering firm, the City of Algoma's engineering firm, does one plan design. They draw all of the plan design, all of the infrastructure, water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, sidewalk, curb, blacktop. We then in turn take that plan and Robert E. Lee sends it over to Cedar Corp, where their CAD guys put the water side of it in. They add where the water lines go, they add the fire hydrants, they put in their water. If they have any problems with our water is gonna be in the way with your storm sewer or with your sanitary sewer, at that time, both firms work together and decipher who's gonna move, where should this be moved up or down, how is it gonna work for everybody. And we put it out to bid. From when we put it out to bid, the job is accepted, the contracts are awarded to whoever the contractor is, and then the field surveying starts. And there are days that our engineering firm is out with the utilities engineers, or field survey guys. They're on the same job together. They're both out here. So that is, it's maybe not the answer you wanted to hear. I'm giving you the history and the background of how we got to where we're at today.
So we're essentially spending more money by not having one engineer than is right, or not necessarily. I guess I'm just looking at ways to save money, and when I saw that we've got two sets of engineers, so if there's two engineers overseeing, say there's two engineers on this project, but one engineer maybe from one company could oversee the whole project, or not necessarily. So I'm just looking for ways to save money. That's all I'm saying. So I don't know how that works or if it's feasible, but shouldn't that be something that we should be considering? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there because I don't understand that aspect of it as far as, but when I see, you know, if we've already got one engineer who knows the whole project and is capable of looking at water and sewer and all the rest of the project, then why are we spending, you know, because essentially taxpayers, ratepayers, we're all the same people here in the city, so, you know, is there a way to save
The only way we could do is if there would be change from a commission to a committee, because we have no control over the utility. They basically can do what they want because they're a commission. Unless we change it to a committee, then we have no input.
Am I accurate though in saying that the utility part, Cedar Corp, doesn't get charged to the taxpayer other than in the rates? The rates for the utilities could go down. I know, but but I'm thinking, I'm just to clear it up for her. We're not. It's not coming out of the capital fund.
Cedar Corp does not bill anything
city.
To the taxes to the city.
Correct.
They bill the taxpayers by their rates.
But we're still paying for it, and for sure. But to her point, if you got rid of Cedar Corp, Division Street would be the same.
I want to be clear, as I can't get rid of Cedar Corp.
No, I'm just saying
Utility Commission.
the price of Division Street project won't go down for the city. And would that be accurate?
It would go up.
Well, that brings into the finalization of the project where you could see that price differ, right? So right now, when we finalize or we get a pay app, okay, so the contractor comes in and they just do $400,000 worth of work. They send in pay request number 1. We then take that pay request and it goes to the engineer, and there's a spread item or a spreadsheet for every line item on the project. And there's on a project like ours, there's 150 different lines, and it has everything from pipe to aggregate to fittings to, and Amber and myself sit down and go through every line item. The first pay app isn't the worst. It's the last pay app. When the final pay app comes in, we go through every bit of it. And, okay, this is everything, because we have a contract, the city of Algoma has a contract, the utilities does not have a contract with the contractor. It's the city of Algoma that enters into our contracts with these projects. So at the end of the day, we receive 100% of the bill. We then pay 100% of the bill, and then we break that down, and I would say we, mostly Amber, goes through that with a fine-tooth comb, and then we take measurements off of engineering, field surveyed, that, okay, everywhere where they put a water lateral and a sanitary lateral, the utility pays for 14 feet to curb cut, and how much blacktop they pay for. And we go through, itemize all of that, and in turn send a bill over to the utilities. Pete goes through it at the utility side of things. He digests, okay, well, I think this should be 27 feet, not 32 feet. He comes back and says, Amber, have check with Matt, why is this, why is that? We look at it, okay, you're correct on this, you're wrong on that, and then they send a check back to the city for their portion of the project. The only portion of the project that they do not pay is we do not break out any of our engineering to them, because they have their own engineering firm. So in a roundabout way, if we really want to get down to dollars and cents, we do pay for some of their engineering. We do pay for their processing, getting it out to bid. There's some things that the city pays for that does not get carried over or billed over the utilities.
So my point would be, if they didn't have Cedar Corp, Robert E. Lee would have to design the water. Who would pay for that?
The city, we would then build the utilities for
Okay.
that. Where there's
So
really.
we could save a little money, possibly.
You could save some money there. Where you really would see is where you have the field surveying going on. The day-to-day operations of when the rubber meets the road and the work starts, there's days when the water system is getting put in. They're done with usually the sanitary. They'll start because it's the deepest, then they move into the water, and then they, depending on where they are, sometimes water is the deepest. Usually they'll start with the deepest and they work their way up across the road, okay? There's times where we have 2 field surveyors at, price here, let's call it $170 an hour, and there's 2 of them here. So the utilities is paying for oversight, the city's paying for oversight, because that's just the way it works out. So that's where it can add up real quick. 2 or 3 days in a row, there's field oversight. That's two engineering firms on the ground.
Have you had any experience where the redundancy was a good thing?
I can tell you a story 2 years ago where redundancy was a very bad thing, and I couldn't get answers that we needed to continue, and we're getting charged downtime for our contract at about $600, and waiting for the utilities and their engineering staff to make a decision of, I'm right and you're wrong. And in the meantime, our contract they're billing us waiting to make a decision to move forward. But I mean.
But who would we have turned to resolve that I'm right, you're wrong? We would have turned to another engineering company to weigh both sides?
No, it reverted to me making a field decision and saying this is the way it's getting done right now.
Okay.
And we're moving forward. They're not gonna move their water line, and we need to continue to move this storm sewer down the road, so this is how we're going to do it.
Need a motion to approve this?
Yes, I would ask for a motion that we would approve that. Midge, did I answer all your questions, or? I'm sorry I can't give you the answers for the utilities.
No, I'm just, like I said, I'm always looking at ways to try to figure out how we can save money, and if there's a redundancy that's a huge amount, you know, then is there some way, you know, as liaison for the Utilities Commission, which I am, is there some way to be working better together between city and commission to streamline things or make things more cost efficient or whatever?
So you have the opportunity to pose the same question.
Well,
And I would suggest that. Get both sides and then,
Okay, did I hear Kevin
Yeah,
make
I'll
a
make that
motion?
Yes.
I'll second
Was it
it.
seconded?
No, it was not
I'll
seconded.
second.
I'm sorry.
He could, that's fine,
Go ahead.
whoever.
Give it to Steve.
Progress.
Okay,
I'll give it to Steve.
okay,
That's
you-
good.
you don't need a roll call, right? Just all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Agenda item for next meeting, if you could get that to either Matt or.
Point of order.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Okay, okay.
Second amendment, do you have the new agenda? There's a,
No, I don't have a new
I
agenda.
apologize.
Yeah.
Okay,
You should have one from earlier today. It should have item F on it.
okay.
Launch rooms.
It's all right, you can borrow
Okay, I
mine.
do not
So it
have one
doesn't make a
with an
difference.
agenda, okay.
Item F is
Print stuff off on your computer.
Okay, the marina launch ramp, okay.
So, for the marina launch ramps, we had, 125,000 in the capital outlay for, dock repairs down the marina. We are not spending anywhere near that for what we're doing. We're resurfacing the river docks and the fuel docks. Our launch ramps, which get used daily, and sometimes 100 times a day, they're in bad shape. They're I'm not sure, don't quote me this, but I'm guessing they came the same time as our old A and B docks were here. They have the same plastic float system on them, and from dragging them up and pushing them back in, those floats are now pushing styrofoam everywhere. Frames are all kind of bent and rusty. So we were looking at replacing them with two upgraded models. They'd be a little bit wider than where they're now. They'd be ADA compliant, pretty heavy construction, and they would have a wheel system on them. So instead of dragging the metal and the floats across the concrete, these ones would have a wheel where we'd pull it on a wheel. Those come out to $66,574 for both launch ramps to be replaced. And the reason why it's on here is because in order for us to get them by spring, they would have to start the build out now.
Casey, I have a question
Yes.
from this morning. I know you said they're wider, which is great. How much space is left for two boats to launch side by side? You're only
there's
talking
still-
2 feet, but are we
There's still
squeezing
plenty
them
of
now?
room there. The part that might get a little smaller would be where, I don't think we've ever seen issue with it, but would be if you launch next to a wall. That would be the only real issue, especially on that west side, because you get to that bend, well, right now it is, it gets pretty shallow there pretty quick, to where, if, say, the wind would push a boat over, they might get themselves aground a little bit, but, I wouldn't see you making them a foot
So you'd
wider.
squeeze that side and try to keep the centers of...
Right now, what he's saying is we can launch 4 boats. We would cheat both docks to the walls a little
Okay.
bit.
Yeah.
So
It'd still be a launch
the
4
width in the
boats.
middle would not change, where you'd be able to launch 2
I mean,
boats.
there is room there, but you get that guy that can't quite back up straight.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
It doesn't matter what you do.
Just
with
that
the
guy?
backs.
That guy.
How about that group?
This would be
I've
the-
been there when that guy was there.
They're putting plastic decking on, their plastic decking, because for us to do it, we didn't be able to get the material in time. I don't think we'd be able to get there.
Okay, would you like a motion to go forward with that?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, do you need a roll call, or all in favor?
All in favor, 'cause
All
you're
in
gonna-
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Okay, is there anything else to come before?
I just have one question about the docks. Are we planning on using the same firm that we used to build A and B docks?
It is not. It's actually a firm out of Door County that we reached out to because of the amount of use that we use. We did get a price from Pure Genius that built A and B dock, but because of the amount of use that they get and they're free floating out there by themselves, we actually went with a little sturdier frame and a little beefier built frame.
Okay. Not somebody we've used in the past and had a bad experience with?
I know.
Okay.
Not that Door County company. But now it makes sense, your question.
The three trucker.
Okay, the next item is agenda items for next meeting, to get it over to Matt or Aaron. And our next meeting will be Monday, February 20th at 4 PM.
Just to
a
note
Monday.
that that's a Monday,
Yeah.
because the election is the next day.
Yep.
So we couldn't have our regularly scheduled meeting.
Yes.
Are there any major conflicts that anybody sees with that? Otherwise, we'll keep that set.
We have moved the CDC meeting.
Yep, and the library,
Yeah.
Kathy, you guys were able to move yours too, so.
Public Works
Thank
is
you,
moved.
thank you both committees for being able to move
Yeah.
that, and Public Works for adjusting.
For this meeting, we just need a motion to adjourn for now?
Yep.
So
moved.
Okay, did you get the
Motion by Lee.
motion and second?
Who seconded it? Steve?
Steve?
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.